Alhamdulillah. Assalamu alaikum, everyone. My name is Tanzim. I'm the co-host of Boys in the Cave. Hope you're well, inshallah. So I'm doing this episode a bit differently today. So to get a bit of context, yesterday I had the pleasure of being invited on a panel regarding the situation now that's happening in Bangladesh, and we were able to have a good conversation. And I learned a lot from the panelists around me, and there was a lot of turnout, good turnout, alhamdulillah, especially from the Bangladeshi community. And in saying that, I only had 15 minutes to speak, and I wasn't allowed to present the slides with the visuals in the mosque. So since I only ended up presenting about, I don't know, 30% of my content, I thought it'd be really good to just do a whole episode, an extensive, comprehensive outline of what's going on in Bangladesh. Because from my experience being as a Bangladeshi, honestly, like, I don't feel that we as a Muslim community, as a whole Ummah, I'm talking about our Arab brothers, Lebanese brothers, North African brothers, etc., are actually aware of what's happening in Bangladesh. Like, innocents are literally being shot dead, and the people from families being taken away unjustly without any consequence from or any accountability in regards to what the actions of the police and the government are doing. So that for me is obviously concerning and sad, and makes me angry as a Bangladeshi and as a Muslim. But we also need more support from our brethren as well. So I actually have put in this whole slides. Like, I think so the sort of content in the Western English sphere side of things, the content that I saw with Dilly and the blogging theology was a good outline of what's going on. So I just wanted to merely add to the conversation in regards to what is actually happening in Bangladesh. So I have put slides through together to really give a really good idea to people that aren't familiar with Bangladeshi politics in terms of what's happening, so that we can conceptualize the history, and on top of that, really truly understand what's going on and fight for justice, inshallah, because it's just basically, massacre, atrocities happening, and we aren't talking about it enough. Like, yesterday, I was at the panel, and I made this point on the panel that, mashallah, obviously there's a great turnout from the Bangladeshi camp, but I'm not seeing any other nationalities, unfortunately. So we need assistance from the whole Ummah to come together, just like how we came together for Palestine and every other Muslim issue. We need the Ummah to come together for Bangladesh as well, inshallah. So that's why we need to step away from that Arab-centric focus when it comes to politics, right? So maybe just to give also a brief little overview of Bangladesh historically in regards to Islam, so that people can find that Islamic spirit within them when it comes to this ummatic issue. So with Bangladesh, we had the time of the Mughal Empire, the Bengal Sultanate. It was immensely wealthy land because it had fertile land that produced rice. It had relationships with the government, and they were able to clear all the land. And within that, Tasawwuf were really involved in that land clearing process, and that money generator helped assist in building mosques, helped spread Islam. So there was a lot of interesting ways in terms of how the Bengal region flourished. So it produced cotton, silk, taka muslin, rice, etc. And people from like China, Portugal, came to the Bengal region, right? And really contribute to the commerce and trade. And it was a thriving land in every facet, mashallah. So that is like the rich history with, especially with Sufism, spirituality within the lands of Bengal, that we should be proud of as not just being Bengalis, but as Bangladeshis. So in regards to, I also wanted a caveat before I go into my slides, inshallah, that Bangladesh is a country that I feel strongly. The people of Bangladesh have always struggled, and in 1971 there was a liberation war where there was atrocities that West Pakistan committed towards Bangladesh, formerly known as East Pakistan at that time, and the country liberated itself and renamed itself Bangladesh. And it was like one of the biggest civil wars in history, a lot of casualties, a lot of deaths. So it was a really dark period in Bangladesh history. And that was obviously a struggle of that time. The people of the time struggled, and we just continued to struggle from then in the sense that third world country, infrastructure poor, basic necessities of life uncovered, people struggling to make a living, even to this day. So obviously, as a result of these issues in the country, people migrate out, and there's a brain drain, right? And even when people migrate to the West, right, they're trying to seek a better life. And alhamdulillah, like a lot of Bangladeshis are able to do that and establish that lifestyle, but they still cop that, racism or never truly feel at home, right, in the West. But on top of that, we see like so many other Bangladeshis in the Gulf countries that are struggling, the slave labor, as well as, in Saudi, it's famously known like most of the cleaners in a lot of cleaners in Saudi are Bangladeshi, right? So, and even in Italy, like, in Italy, there's like Bangladeshi strawberry pickers. So, Bangladesh in all facets, Bangladeshis have always just struggled, no matter where they are in the world, and especially now, especially when Bangladeshis in Bangladesh are actually getting killed by their own government. They're getting shot dead on the streets. They're getting arrested, taken away to such extent. So it's just escalated to such a degree. And now we have to really speak up, right? We have to speak up as a Ummah, not just Bangladeshis, in terms of what is actually happening and create more awareness around these issues. So, in regards to the importance, so why I wanted to give that historical outline is that obviously I also gave this example yesterday at Likimba Mosque that as Bangladeshis or even just as Muslims, like we should not view we should not isolate political situations. It's always interconnected with a string of different historical situations and things that have occurred in the past that led up to a certain point. So, because of the student quota reform movement, where people might look at that and think, okay, people are only dying or willing to die for the sake of student quotas. Like, I think if we reduce it to this event, then it's not going to really get to the essence of why this situation is happening and why they continue to fight for this quota reform. At this point in time, many of the leaders of the quota reform movement, it's not even just about the quota reform anymore. It's about literally trying to fight and get justice in all facets as a result of the corruption that occurs in Bangladesh, because it's so widespread in every top to bottom. Like to get by, you have to do briberies. There's corruption from all levels, police, army, etc. So as a result, these students are frustrated. They're frustrated. They want justice in a society that has like a growing economic situation and have some sort of positives, but they're not seeing it reflect in actual jobs, for example, or actual justice. So that's why these students have bravely taken up a fight, initially peacefully, right? I mean, it is peaceful. The movement has been peaceful, but as you can see, the government has been cracking down in such a way that they want to squash any uprising, even if it's peaceful. So I'm going to now share my slides, inshallah, so we can really. So I wasn't allowed to present the visuals in the mosque, and so I had to do a sort of revised version. And so this is why I want to, and I put a lot of time and effort into the visuals. So once we see the videos or we see your pictures, right? I don't think some of the videos I can show because YouTube might take it down. But if we look at the visuals and the stats and the graphs, I think that'll give a better indication. It will really give us a better idea of what is actually happening in Bangladesh and why it's happening, and have that better awareness about the situation, inshallah. So whoever's listening through Spotify, iTunes, I also highly recommend check it out on YouTube and look so that you can actually see the visuals and the slides, inshallah. So let me share my slides now. Bismillah. Sorry, 1 second. Okay, so Bismillah. What is happening now in Bangladesh? Students are protesting peacefully. Quota change movement is occurring, and innocents are locked up and killed by Hasina regime. So, in short, before I get into the details, there has been quota. There's government jobs with quotas, and there are percentages for different groups. And so, for example, minorities get a certain percentage of government jobs allocated. And what we'll get into is 30% of those government jobs are also allocated to freedom fighters, right? So they have allocation or percentage for in regards to this quota for different groups. And I think on merit, it's roughly 50% as well. So based on your capability, they'll also hire you by turning a certain percentage of that. So students have been protesting on the streets in regards to these particular percentages for these quota jobs in government. So as you can see in the graph, so I think you can see it here, quota for freedom fighters, children and grandchildren is 30% currently. And so with when it comes to government jobs, to also give a bit of context, it's so lucrative and prestigious. So if you compare it to government jobs in Australia, yeah, it's also safe and secure and all this sort of stuff. So people do try to get these government jobs in Australia. But in Bangladesh, it's even more lucrative because it's even more prestigious because you get like very special pensions after retire from a government job, and it's very stable, it's very secure. And you have to also understand that in a country like Bangladesh, that's so much instability, poor infrastructure, people are struggling to go live day to day, right? You can imagine how people would be gunning for these kind of government jobs so that they can be safe and secure and really secure the livelihood of the family. So that's why there's a lot of competition for these kind of positions. So as you can see, on 44% is based on merit, but there's all these other percentages. And so the main one we want to focus on today is also the 30% quota for freedom fighters, children, and grandchildren. So we also have to understand the brief history, right? The brief history of the quota system, right? Sorry, before I do that, I think for the audience, it's also important that we try to grasp what a freedom fighter is actually is, right? So the 30% is for freedom fighters, and so looking at Bangladesh history, as I said, in 1971, Sheikh Mujibur Rahman was pivotal in the liberation of Bangladesh. So the people that fought, the Bangladeshis that fought Pakistan and successfully were victorious are called freedom fighters. So they are etched in historical folklore, as you can say, in Bangladeshi history. They're seen as very coveted. In some ways, like for example, in Australia, I don't think in America these sentiments exist for the U.S. Army because a lot of people condemn the U.S. Army for their actions in Afghanistan, etc. But in Australia, still weirdly, I do feel that the sentiments of the Australian public is like they highly respect the Australian army to such a degree that they're almost like faultless and sinless. You know, they put them on such a high pedestal, and they full look up to them and sort of etched in with how we celebrate, how Australians celebrate Anzac Day, all this sort of stuff. So similarly, in the Bangladeshi context, freedom fighters are like heroes, right? Like superheroes, and because 1971 wasn't that long ago, there's so many like freedom fighter stories that Bangladeshi families share amongst one another. Like in in my context, I hear like my grandfather telling stories, to me about like what happened in the freedom fighters and what they did. So these stories are like still alive to this day and are a source for inspiration for the younger generation as well as the older generation experience and saw the freedom fighters firsthand, right? So they're given that kind of honor within Bangladesh society. So back to the brief history of the quota system. When it comes to 1972, so 1971 Bangladesh got liberated. So 1972, Sheikh Mujibur Rahman introduced 30% quota to freedom fighters. So this was it wasn't that controversial at the time because they just literally helped Bangladesh liberate. So essentially, it was for them to stick by what Sheikh Mujibur Rahman implemented. But up until 2018, there were little changes with the quotas over time. But in 2018, Sheikh Hasina, which is Sheikh Mujibur Rahman's daughter, who so they both were affiliated with Awami League, and Sheikh Hasina is now the ruler of the Awami League, and she actually introduced 30% quota for freedom fighters in 2018, and as a result, there were so many protests that occurred even in 2018, and because of the nature of how the protests happened and the intensity of it, Hasina then called an end to those quotas, right? So I think she even went onto TV and mentioned, like, implied that she was siding with the students or tried to pose that line of thinking, and then she put the end to the quotas, and like that was seen as the end of that. But which is really interesting, in 2014, the High Court ruled on 5th of June this year, the High Court ruled cancellation of quotas as unlawful, right? So Sheikh Hasina cancelled the quotas, and now the High Court has come in, cancelling the quota. And so there's a lot of interesting sort of analysis where people feel like Hasina, the way that she had called an end to the quotas, was she actually genuine? So they've put a question mark, right? And I think so. Yesterday, I gave the example of Erdogan with Israel, right? Like he comes out very publicly on TV condemning Israel and doing this and that, but then behind closed doors, there's like potential deals on the table with Israel with trade, etc. Right? So it makes you think, like, is he really truly being genuine to his word? Is it just a front for the people to appease the people? We don't know, right? So Hasina is probably mirroring something along those lines that on face value, yeah, like she might be supporting the quota, putting an end to the quota, but then behind the scenes, she was actually making moves so that the quota actually gets cancelled. And it's like, it goes sort of under the rug, right? So no one really picks up on it, right? But so when that happened, there was basically students peacefully, and I just want to stress this, right, peacefully went onto the streets protesting because of this change. So I just want to stress the peaceful nature of it because there may be the government narrative is sometimes like, these students were causing a lot of mayhem and ruckus, etc. But that's not the case, right? If anything, it was the government that really caused the extra damage that they went in with like the army, RAB, and we can get into those groups and what they do for Sheikh Hasina, right? So there's that narrative that it's like, the students escalated all these protests, but it was in fact the government really clamped down on all of this, right? Fortunately. So when it comes to so then as students are protesting, government basically starts killing the students, abducting them, taking them away from their homes, torturing them to such a degree, and there's curfews and all that as well implemented, and it's just been absolute chaos. Like so much backlash. They're monitoring phones and seeing if someone's supporting the protests, the student protests, and taking them away. There's so much happening right now, Subhan Allah, and that's why I just want to stress as an ummah, like we need to be aware of these issues. Like we need to be talking about it more, so that we can really do something for our brothers and sisters that are undergoing such oppression, especially with the Hasina regime. So it really needs to be taken into consideration. So then, Supreme Court actually cut the quota to 5%, but people are saying that, oh, it's just that, yeah, like it's been done, but they want to see more change, right? So that's why the student protests are continuing, because it's not like enough for them, right? Because there's just so much oppression, injustice within Bangladesh society. They just want to see more than just, just they need to see more than just quota change, right? They want to do more. They want more. They need more, right? Considering like so much suffering and oppression that they go through, right? So let us get into the next slide as well. Um, so as I explained with the freedom fighters, right? They're giving such honor and prestige. So on face value, when the quota system was first implemented, it may have been seen as a good thing because it's like, hey, these freedom fighters liberated our country, right? So therefore, if we let them have these jobs, it will just secure them, like because they deserve it, like secure their future because they deserve it. They've done so much for this country, etc. Right? And there's a lot of debate around this kind of narrative in the sense that we should just give everything, every resource to the freedom fighters because they have such legacy, right? So there may be conversations like, are we going too far, etc. But in saying that, like, it was met with good intentions, right? But how the Hasina regime are utilizing these quota systems, right? They're not doing it for the sake of goodwill of supporting the freedom fighters. That's not actually the reason, right? So if people generally, if people really felt that the government was really doing this for the sake of their good heart and their love and care for the freedom fighters, then I mean, it would be maybe a little bit different with how the protests are going, but that's not the case. The government are just kind of using the freedom fighter quota as a way to strengthen their regime, as a way to strengthen their rule. And I'll explain how so. So these freedom fighters, right? There's these certificates that you require as a to apply for these freedom fighter quotas, and there's, as you can see in the slides, there is actually evidence that these were faked. Like these freedom fighter, as you can see, the generals, as you can see, the thousands hold fake freedom fighter certificates, right? So this they're just getting these fake certificates, giving it to loyalists of the Hasina regime, right? They're giving it to these people, and they are the ones that are actually going into uh, these coveted government jobs, not necessarily freedom fighters, right? And the people that are going into these jobs are like Chatra League, which we'll get into, which is a student wing of Awami League. So this is very, very important that we understand this part, that we have so much evidence that the government are actually corrupt, and they're using this quota, the freedom fighter quota, as a means to just have their own loyal people get into government, into bureaucracy, like different levels and all facets in society, and so that they can be strengthening their reign for a long, long time. And as you can, which we'll later talk about, like the democracy and the elections are all rigged basically. Like there hasn't been a genuine one for like, over a decade. So these are actually problems that the now students are protesting about peacefully, right? Like you can't just let it fly. Like how can like roughly 50% of government jobs be based on merit, right? When 30%, I think that's a big number, are being assigned to these like corrupt people of the government. Like it makes no sense. So that's why students aren't happy. And you can see on the slide below, General Secretary of uh, Chhatra League, so BCL's Chhatra League, accused of leaking medical exam questions, right? So which is really crazy that even to get into medicine, like they're sort of giving these exam questions to loyalists of the Hasina regime, whoever taking those exams, so that they can pass and then be in the medical field. And we will get into this later, but we're seeing it now. Like some hospitals are turning away certain patients and stuff, and people are saying that's as a result of like the corruption that is occurred. Like they don't want to help these people, and the hospital catches a wind of it, like who this person is and stuff, and the government and the hospitals are all linked with the unis. Like they want to ostracize the people that are actually fighting for justice as much as possible. Like it's all a web. It's an interconnected nature of Bangladesh society. Like, and this is the nature of the corruption, which are, again, it goes back to why the students are protesting about all this sort of stuff, because we're just seeing it on such a level that it's like when you want to get basic help from hospitals, right? And I'll explain as well, like some of the leaders of the quota reform movements, they're in hospital and they're getting taken away from the hospital bed. They're like, severely injured, right, on their deathbed, possibly as well, and they're getting dragged away by literally the government, and tortured and punished and locked up. They just want to strengthen their rule to that extent that they're willing to do whatever they can, and this is the injustice that occurs. And so, to add to this, there's a percentage that I got from Quota Reform, which is a Bangladeshi newspaper. So freedom fighters make up 0.12% to 0.2% of Bangladeshi population. So people are asking the question, like, if the freedom fighter percentage of freedom fighters in Bangladesh are so small, why are they assigned 30% of Bangladesh government jobs, right? Like that's a big number for such a small population. Even though in the quota system, it does say like they're assigning it to family members and grandchildren. But it's like, why does it have to extend all the way to grandchildren, right? Like these are freedom fighters. Why should the privileges of government job be assigned to their, kids and their kids and the grandchildren of their kids, right? Like it's a bit unfair to do that when exactly like as Bangladesh is struggling nation, and we should be trying to secure lives of other families as well, right? Make their lives easier. But why contain it against like this elitist of society? So I want to stress like all these actions of the issues of the quota system goes back to the idea that the regime, Hasina regime, want to strengthen their rule and want to keep these coveted jobs for the elites of the society. Like it's only staying with the people of the elites of the society. And these actions, such as faking the freedom fighter certificates and leaking medical exam questions to people in their own party, in the government's party, in the Hasina's regime, it's like to strengthen their rule. It's to keep these jobs in their elite circles and just continue that reign for indefinitely. And that's another reason why the student protests are happening. They're so frustrated about this, right? So it's also understanding that we have to be aware about this situation to how extent it is, right? To the extent that it is. So, I'm gonna next slide, inshallah. So, there was a comment by Sheikh Hasina, the party's ruler, and before I explain it, actually, I'll read the quote first. It says, why do they have so much resentment towards freedom fighters? If the grandchildren of the freedom fighters don't get quota benefits, should the grandchildren of Rajakas get the benefits, right? So, to explain this quote, people may not be familiar with the term Rajaka. In short, it just means like it's implying the traders of the people that were involved in the liberation of Bangladesh in 1971. So there's the freedom fighters that were fighting for Bangladesh, trying to help Bangladesh be liberated because Pakistan were coming into Bangladesh and killing innocents and raping and pillaging. And so because of that, we needed obviously everyone to be on board to help liberate Bangladesh, right? Because so much oppression was occurring. But unfortunately, like in all aspects of history as well, you get traitors in this regard, like in colonial period, and there's many Indians, for example, were traders and loyal to the British, that really destroyed the lives of their own people, right? Like, so you have those situations, or you have situations in the Sirah where Abdullah ibn Ubay ibn Salul, which I gave this example yesterday in the talk, he was a trader, a munafiq, and you also have it in this situation where in Bangladesh, there were traders at the time that helped Pakistan, right, going against their people, even though the people being oppressed, and continue and that enabled Pakistan's oppression towards the Bangladeshis, right? So and India basically eventually helped with Bangladesh to liberate. And there's a really interesting discussion about that. It's like how can we rely on quote unquote like a Hindu nation to help liberate us when our own Muslim brothers and sisters from Pakistan were like oppressing their own fellow Bangladeshi. And there's a lot of analysis with that when it comes to racism and the extent of it and power. And maybe to also give a bit of context, Sheikh Mujibur Rahman, like because East Pakistan, which is Bangladesh, and West Pakistan, both countries were like one country. Sheikh Mujibur Rahman actually won the elections for West Pakistan, which is interesting. So someone from East Pakistan was winning the elections in West Pakistan and technically had power. But West Pakistan did what they did in order to not let that happen. And there's a lot of reasons for that. Like if you look at the analysis of trade and commerce and finance and racism, all these kind of aspects put together, like West Pakistan did not want someone from East Pakistan to rise up and lead all the countries, right? Because I mean, you can also do that analysis of that and how the British putting those divided lines and making Bangladesh and East Pakistan more into one country has affected their relations, because West Pakistan and East Pakistan and Bangladesh were like completely different countries and nations. So it didn't, and they're so far away from each other. Like India's in between both East Pakistan and West Pakistan, right? So that was always going to cause problems. And yeah, the West Pakistan, it just went even more intense, and they started oppressing innocent Bangladeshis. And so there were people, Rajakas in the ranks in Bangladesh that helped Pakistan, right? So that's to give a bit of context of the Rajaka comment. And students were very intelligent with how they responded to that. Like it made them even more upset, because it's like there's a binary that's getting played. Like if we protest, or the students protest for the quotas, does that mean that we're Rajakas? Like that's a very dangerous binary to put someone in, especially with a very complicated or history of Bangladesh where a lot of people struggled, right? And people all like Bangladeshis want what's best for the people, right? Like especially like the lay people, not the Hasina regime, obviously, but they want what's best, right? So to just label someone willy nilly as a Rajaka, like throwing those terms around, it's very degrading and hurtful, especially with the history of Bangladesh, right? And I think there was a backtracking from Hasina, because I think she realized like how much backlash she got as well, right? So it's really important that this term is understood, and you don't want to put like it's just a political suicide, right? Like to put these like binaries of like basically to give a clear example, the good Muslim, bad Muslim binary, right? Like if you live in the West and you talk about jihad a little bit, or like something along those lines about war as a Muslim, they'll put, oh, you're probably a bad Muslim, aren't you? Right? But it's like, as a white person or white non-Muslim, putting those perceptions on a Muslim real fast, like, and if a Muslim is like polite, kind, it's like, oh no, you're a good Muslim, aren't you? Like, but quickly you can be termed as a bad Muslim. So those binaries are very problematic, right? Because it's a lot more nuanced and complicated, right? You can't just pigeonhole someone in binaries in that fast. So like similarly, that's what's happened in with this Rajaka comment. Like, oh yeah, so just because you protest, what suddenly, or Rajaka, like how am I betraying the country? Like, chill, bro. Like it's not that case. So the students were very clever. They did a chant. It's like, who are you? Who am I? Rajaka, Rajaka. Who says that? Dictator, dictator, right? So a dictator will only see it in these kind of binaries for their own agenda, right? So that's hopefully that made sense with the Rajaka comment, which is very problematic in the way it was mentioned. So Inshallah, next slide. So, as I wanted to stress, the nature of the protests were peaceful, right? It was a very peaceful protest regarding the quota changes. Students are sick of the political game that's played. They're sick of how this freedom fighter 30% quota for government jobs is getting abused. Excuse me. And so now they want to take a stand, right? They want to really, really take a stand peacefully, and they've done that peacefully. And what have the government done? And this is how they act in like literally every single situation. When a little bit of an uprising happens, even if it's peaceful or not peaceful, they will squash it, quell it, like go at it, destroy it, extinguish it as much as possible. And they have so many resources to go to in order to achieve that, right? They have that much power, like they have control over like all these other aspects within Bangladeshi society, but then they have so much power in regards to like when it comes to violence, they can kind of mobilize and make it happen with different organizations coming together. So it sort of started off with Chatra League. So to explain Chatra League, right? Chatra League are a thuggish. They're very vigilantes. They are the student wing of the Awami League, and they literally, in this particular case, they'll be killing, shooting, they're beating up peaceful protesters, or throw stones and bricks and just cause like that kind of bloodshed and mayhem in behalf of the Awami League. And there's many ways they do that, like because they're students, right? So many of these student uprisings will happen in universities, for example, and this goes back to the interconnectedness of the Awami League. Like once they Awami League loyalists are within these universities and all aspects of Bangladeshi society and the fabric of Bangladeshi society. So once they sense or someone picks up on this, they will like call up a person, and someone might pay them to just whenever uprising happens, they'll just like go out, kill, murder, like whatever they need to do basically in order to make sure it doesn't happen. They get paid for it and have those kind of connections, and that they are that loyal to the Awami League, right? So that's how the Chatra League behave. They are just that kind of person, like, and they'll mask themselves as they are students, and they'll mask themselves as such. So they might look like just normal, person in society, but then they have these guns out. They'll bring it, pull it out whenever they need to, and catch people by surprise. And which is even more dangerous, right? When you're masking yourself amongst like other students, and it's like a monafik in many ways, right? Like you know that people are going through hardship and tough times and all this sort of stuff, so they just want a bit of justice, and then people around you might be Awami League loyalists and Chatra League, and so they like pull out and be violent and unexpectedly when you don't see it coming, because they mask themselves amongst the students, right? Which is really dangerous. So unfortunately, they are basically the ones got called up to squash these student protests, and obviously when they go heavy-handed, it's just gonna escalate even more, right? And so the unis is also the second dot point. The unis as well are complicit. They're complicit with the crimes of Chatra League. So we were in the front of read the quote, we're part of the register building, and I saw some of the university officials watching from above. We're trying to escape, but the office buildings were locked up, and this is in complicity in Chatra League. So you can see like how the universities are connected to this, and they didn't want to help the students in this particular situation, right? And this is what unfortunately happened. Like this is how connected the Awami League is in every facet of Bangladesh society, even to the point where universities aren't willing to. Universities are meant to be safe spaces, right, for justice and having these discussions or trying to help with oppression, right, all around the world. They are the ones. The universities are the ones that are actually starting with the government, and it's a bit scary, right? Like in the past, we would have these kind of free-flowing discussions and talk, but now you can't do that, especially in Bangladesh, because it's going to cause more issues because it's not going to align with the agenda of the university and the government, and that doesn't just happen in Bangladesh; it happens in all around the world now, especially with the Palestine activism. like governments are clamping down, or and as a result, because it doesn't align with their Israel pro-Israel stances, and universities get involved and try to eradicate any sort of movements, pro-Palestinian movements. So that was just the Chatra League. So the police, they've been, long story short, unbelievable, committing murder, say genocide. Innocents are dying for no reason. Like people that are unarmed, people aren't like causing any issue or problem, right? Peacefully protesting, and what are the police are doing? They are literally attacking people using tear gas, grenades, batons, pellets aimed at eyes, and fire rubber bullets at innocent protesters. So this is the extent to how the police are behaving, and that's how far they're willing to go when it comes to squashing any sort of protest, even if it's just peaceful, right? Which is unfortunate. Like it's it's like there's no avenues to just be peaceful, especially for simple things as justice. And the government will just call upon all the resources they have to just, they don't care if someone dies. Like it for them, it's just like we just need to continue this power and rule in this way because it was ordered by the Awami League government, and they're willing to just comply and they're complicit in all of this, right? So Amnesty International has made many statements. So if you go through and read the quotes on their website, and the articles on their website, they've deemed, so for example, actions of police are unlawful. So they've already deemed like and are monitoring closely like the atrocities that are currently occurring in Bangladesh. So we also have this quote. So hospitals are full of innocents have been killed, numbers ranging from 600 to over 2,000 dead. So what's really interesting is there's conservative numbers in within the government. Like they're only saying a few hundred, right? But people are now reporting like they've seen so many dead bodies. Like it can't be that. Like it's just very obvious that obviously the government is not being truthful here, right? Like they've ever been truthful anyway. But there's like over 1,000, over 2,000 that it's been reporting. Like the amount of deaths of innocent people, and it's floating around. If you really want to find it, I actually have all the not all, sorry, I have very clear video of all these massacres, this innocent deaths of in the hands of police, and the video, it's like so tragic, and I wish I could show them. And so if someone wants to see those videos, like actual proof, like they can feel free to reach out to me on social media or other means, right? And I'll send them through. But it's like the protester is literally the student is running away from the police, like unarmed, this and that, and they're just shooting them down, like their lives mean nothing. Like there's no value to human life, and it's so tragic that this is the extent of what the government is willing to do in order to just continue the oppression or continue the control or stranglehold over Bangladesh society. That's the willing, and that's how scary is that? Like that's like Israel, right? In the sense that they're willing to do anything that they can, keep control as much as they can in order to continue their reign and their power, right? And and that's just going to continue from what it looks like, right? Especially with the heightened abductions, the people, the police, and other organizations going into homes and arresting people, taking them away. Like it's just going to get worse and worse. So that's in regards to the police, right? The police and how they've been behaving. And before I go into the next slide, actually, I think it's in the next slide. Yes, so there's all these photos, as you can see, and this is some of the visuals of what the police are doing on the streets to people, like just randomly tear gassing all these people. That you just clearly see in the photo, like they're not doing anything, right? And look at the guy just getting dragged by like how many policemen? 5 policemen. These are only just photos. Like imagine on a day to day what's happening, right? This guy's like firing like such a like I don't know what the machinery is. Like look at that, like a photo. Like he's firing it into the crowd of people, right? And pointing their guns in like it's nothing. Like that's ordered by the Hasina government to just squash these student protests that no matter what it takes, right? And there are so many other evidences and photos. This video might play, but I'm gonna skip over it. But it's just innocents dying. It's just innocent people dying. So this video, I don't think I'll be able to show it, but this video, subhanAllah, like the student is literally hanging off the side of a veranda of this. You can see this building. He's he's seeing the police and he's hiding from the police, right? He's not like trying to attack and kill, right? He's literally trying to hide from the police. And the police happen to just catch him, and they literally make such an effort to go up to him, find him, because he's like in this uncomfortable like angle, oh sorry, this awkward angle on the side of the veranda of the building. They literally rein in all they can in order to get to that person who's literally hanging off a building, trying to get away from them, and shooting at him, literally shooting at him. And this is what I'm saying. Like, this is the level of the atrocities that are occurring in Bangladesh, and we need to speak up as a ummah. Not just Bangladeshi uncles. Like last night, yesterday, I just saw Bangladeshi uncles in the crowd. Where's the Bangladeshi young kids? Where is everyone else? Where's the rest of the ummah? Where are they? They need to be like talking about this, and this to this extent, the atrocities that are occurring. This is unbelievable. Like, for a Muslim, how can we sleep at night thinking this is what happening to my brothers and sisters, like innocent brothers and sisters that aren't doing anything, and they're just getting killed by the police, right? And here on the video on the right, which I can't show, I think it was another student dragging another student. The student's like literally shot, and the police is still shooting at him. Like, how many shots do you need to kill someone? Like, you're a police armed with your gun. Like, this person's innocent, wearing his like thobe and tupi. Like, what's he gonna do to you, bro? And how many times are you gonna shoot him? Like, what do you have in your heart to be able to do that? Yeah, so you can see a point. SubhanAllah. And there's been many reports like kids are dying. Students, not like it's not even young adults. They're killing innocent kids. Kids. Bear in mind, yes, some of the deaths have been like from stray bullets and stuff, but they're reporting now like they're getting sniped. And kids like this child is literally shot dead, and there's reports of other kids like guys and girls like her age getting shot dead. And this is something like we're just going to not talk about. Like, how can a child die in such a manner, and how can the government continue this? Like, they should have shame, but they don't. They don't have any shame. And subhanallah, yesterday, mashallah, the sheikh that was on the panel with us, Sheikh Abu Huraira, like, may Allah reward him immensely. And when I was like preparing my slides and doing all of this, right, I didn't obviously, like, what I mean from the Islamic perspective, like, I didn't full like take my time to process like actual situations from the seerah or Islamic tradition or stories of the prophets that we can derive inspiration from in order to stand up for justice. And the Sheikh, mashallah, actually compared Sheikh Hasina, literally said she's a Fir'aun. And I think that's what needs to be pushed. I think we need to even do like Instagram, quotes about like how Sheikh Hasina is literally Fir'aun. Like, was a Fir'aun actually like didn't kill innocent like daughters or kids as well? Like, there was something he was not even willing to do. Like, Fir'aun of the time had, even though he didn't have he didn't have any sort of morality in that regard, but he had a little bit of morality, like but unfortunately, like, Sheikh Hasina is like letting little kids and babies die. Like, so what does that tell about her? She's the Pharaoh of the Ummah, and she should be seen like that. Like, how can someone like that continue this kind of oppression? We need to be speaking more speaking more about it, inshallah. So this was a really sad situation because the video was floating around a lot on social media in a lot of circles. There was a lot of people at the present time when Abu Sayeed died. So Abu Sayeed, innocent 25-year-old student, was literally killed by a bird shot by police, posed as no physical threat, as Amnesty International has quoted, right? So as you can see the quote, Amnesty International strongly condemns the killing of student Abu Sayeed and the attacks against Quota Reform protesters at Dhaka University and other campuses across the country. And yeah, sorry, I'm going to get a bit emotional. Like, if you see the video, like I think it's really inspirational in the sense that he was standing by himself, and maybe we can go to the next slide. Um, I should get the actual image, um, but he, if you see the actual raw image, he was so there were so many videos and angles taken, and the government tried to actually, subhanAllah, they tried to say that the police did not kill him, right? That it was their own students, and the police will always lie, like or the government will always lie about these kind of situations, especially one that really gains traction online. Like they'll just try to straight away deny it, but subhanallah, like Allah exposes the hypocrites and the liars. Like they ended up having all these other angles of the same event, and you could see the police literally. You can see it right there, the video. So Abu Sa- when the video plays, it pans to Abu Sayyid on the left, but the police are literally there firing the shot at Abu Sayyid, and he, subhanallah, like as you can see in this photo, he's heroically like putting his hands up in the air, like yeah, kill me, like he's ready to die. He's basically like he's in a situation where the police, like he's unarmed, he's not doing anything, he's not harming them, and he sees a bunch of policemen. He knows that they're going to do something to him, and he's not running away, right? Like everyone else could or would or should. He's there to be like, kill me, like I'm ready to die for this. And how heroic is that? As a man to just just to do that, and that's the epitome of masculinity. Like you have on social media, like all these conversations about masculinity and getting big muscle, going to the gym. No, that is what you call standing up for your faith, for what you believe, and justice. And may Allah is Shaheed, like may Allah like him in the highest ranks of Jannah. Like this is why it gained so much traction on social media, because it was such a heroic thing, and they recorded the whole thing. There was so much video evidences, and he's gonna live in our and be etched in our memory for the rest of our lives, and for eternity in the dunya as well, right? Like he was that heroic to just die knowing and fighting for justice. And that is what I'm saying, like as student quotas, reform movements, like they're willing to die. They're willing to die for this. And so if we know that people in the Ummah are willing to die for this, what are we doing as the rest of the Ummah? Like what are we actually doing? Are we putting efforts to help these fellow brothers and sisters as well? Obviously, it's not just brothers. Sisters, mashallah, like on the forefronts of these student quota movements. They're the ones that are doing the chants, are going down the streets and risking their lives. This is happening right now. And what are we doing? So he's there. He's there. I'm not gonna can't play the rest. It's really yeah. He literally like falls dead to the ground, and he doesn't even get to the hospital alive. Like he's dead by the time he gets to the hospital. Subhanallah. Sorry, it's just this is all caught on social on video, and it's circling around social media. The evidence is like insane, and the government always tries to deny any sort of this sort of stuff. Subhanallah. So I might read some quotes as well. So with Abu Said, Derek Pounder, and an independent forensic pathologist who examined photos of the wounds of Said's chest, told Amnesty International that the wounds are consistent with a bird shot. Right, so it's like bird shots are the way bird shots work. Right, they are used in like hunting. Right, so it's like how can you be using such a weapon in such a situation, and how many times you got like two, three policemen firing at you? Like, what do you need to like? Why do you need to be killing someone in such a way, as if they're like I don't know chickens and birds, right? Like, subhanallah, like this is how the mentality is when it comes to this government. So I'll also jump onto this slide, inshallah. So so this is a really important topic as well when it comes to security forces and UN mark videos. So these are the sort of vehicles, as you can see on the screen, that are coming into on the streets of Bangladesh right now. Like these are literally like military tanks, right? And imagine like military tanks just like roaming around like in the West, like on the streets, right? In relation to I don't know Palestinian activism. Like I don't think it has happened. But imagine that like there were so many like big Palestinian protests happening in Australia, all around the world. And imagine like the moment that it first happens, suddenly the army tanks come out, government does this, and police and art points guns at people and this and that. Like it hasn't happened to that level, right? Obviously, well, in Israel it's a different situation, but I'm talking about in other parts of the world. But imagine that this happening, but it's actually happening in Bangladesh, right? So as soon as like the peaceful protests were happening, you got these like army men basically like out on the streets with these big marked vehicles, right? And even from helicopters, they're firing from helicopters. Like these are the kind of uh, tools that the government are utilizing to squash these protests at all costs, right? Excuse me. So the other controversy that occurred, as you can see on this screen here, I think it's here, the UN marked vehicles. It actually caught international news as well, and it was on the German news, and they got an expert on. So to give you the context, like Bangladesh actually help the UN a lot. I think they're like third most important contributor to the UN. Like they have these kind of peace missions, and Bangladesh help with them. And so Bangladesh like assist them with like these kind of military equipment and these kind of these sort of situations with army going on the streets and stuff. So when that happens, UN sort of order it, and the Bangladesh government do it. But what's happened is obviously the Bangladeshi UN are relying on Bangladesh's funds, right? They're relying on their funds, and so it's like a political game, right? Like you have the UN sort of need it because they need assistance, right? So they rely on Bangladesh's help. So UN actually publicly condemned like the Bangladesh government, like why they're using our sort of military army vehicles, right? When they're the ones doing oppression, they're committing genocide. So they've made those statements publicly, but they don't also want to rock the boat too much because if they rock the boat too much, then Bangladesh are going to obviously not are going to pull out of helping the UN, right? So then when that happens, then UN are going to lose funding and lose support from Bangladesh, which they need. So it's a very balancing act of a situation where UN they have condemned Bangladesh's actions in the media, but they're not going to do too much to the point where they'll lose this sort of ability for this sort of army resources. And so Bangladesh are literally using like UN like resources to like kill people, and this is how dirty politics is, unfortunately, right? So jumping onto a situation with the students, it's not even just that they're getting killed, right? Like so many deaths are happening, but on a bigger scale, it's even more insidious, right? So you have on the screen as well, Asif Mahmoud and Abu Bakr Majumdar, two key organizers of the event, reports on their abduction of protests. So they've been abducted, leaders have been abducted, and in some of them, so this is very recent developments. Like I think it was like this morning that the ones that have been taken away, they took a photo with people. I think it was the army or the police, and they were sitting around this table, eating, and they took a photo and they said that look, the anti-quota protesters are fine and no, there's no issues, and trying to they kind of gaslight the rest of Bangladesh, in a toxic way. But we know, they're sort of saying, implying like, oh, they're treated fine, and they might, and then they did another, I think it was like a press conference where they were saying that, they're trying to put an end to even the organizers or the heads of the anti-quota reform movement are saying to the other protesters to stop protesting. But everyone knows like they're BSing because they probably threatened them with their lives and family and kids and all this sort of stuff, and they're sort of forced to do all this, unfortunately. So so the rest of Bangladesh aren't gonna fall for the government's BS because they know it's all an act, right? So so people taken away from hospital I mentioned as well. Leaders are like they're literally injured, and then the police come and take them away from the hospital. And 6,000 plus arrested, nationwide crackdown, and even more. Can you imagine how many people that is? Like they're actually arresting, taking away, and then torturing after. Families don't know where their kids are, and they don't know what to do. And there's so much high alert around like all like places around Bangladesh. Like, what do we do? How do we go about this? Like, police are literally coming into our homes. How do we act accordingly? Like, what? Like, you can imagine that sort of anxiety as a Bangladeshi nation, right? They can't even go to work, and all this like loss of money, and now they won't be able to provide anymore because of the situation. That if they go out, they might die, might be taken away. Like, and they have a kid, and then the kid's like, oh, I can't even search about this situation or have anything on my phone in regards to the protest, or else if they go through my phone, then they might take me away and arrest me. Like, imagine that you had to live that kind of life, right? Like, it's just overwhelming, overbearing. The country's going through so much right now in relation to all of this. Unfortunately, Subhan Allah. And I'll read this quote as well. We urgently call on the government of Bangladesh to rehabilitate all those injured and ensure that they receive proper medical treatment. The authorities must also ensure that all those engaged in attacks on peaceful protesters are held to account, and that an impartial, independent, and swift investigation is conducted against these attackers, as well as the police officers who have directly perpetuated or failed to prevent such breaches of the law. And this is Human Rights have made that statement as well. So on to the next slide as well. So as I said, raids are happening, and they're checking mobiles to see if anything is happening with these people, and if they're affiliated, even loosely affiliated with these protests, they'll like take you away and lock you away. As you can see in the photos, like there's literally police in the left picture, like going at someone's home, investigating, inquiring, searching, trying to find something. So everyone like it was all over social media. Like people were scared, like, oh, are they going to now track every message and stuff? Like, can the government just do that? And they're talking about no, like so the other people that are more tech experts, like, no, these are encrypted, so you might not have to do it to that extent, like or monitor all your social media just in case you get met with a crossfire and taken away. So this is a situation that Bangladeshis are going through, and there's actually a page. I won't mention the page, but there's actually a page on Instagram that's literally like bit by bit, just monitoring the situation and telling people like, oh, the police are coming into this, like Uttara is being under fire as well quite a bit. So these areas of Bangladesh, and the people are warning like, be careful if this happens and that happens, like stay alert. I heard, gunshots. So there's these communities that are coming together to try to help each other, and navigate this kind of unsettling situation, right? So this is the situation, and I'm told that the curfews are in place. I think it's slowly easing at the moment because of backlash that the government are getting. But they're also these police, army, all these people, they have a license to shoot on site. I mean, I don't have to say, like you can see in the videos, they're going to shoot on site anyway. Like that's kind of how they're going about. That's how they're going about dealing with this situation, right? So that is in regards to the curfews, internet outage. So the government did cut the internet. It did come back a little bit recently, and you can imagine they did that strategically so that the information doesn't go a bit more internationally in regards to what's happening, and they want to stop all that movement. And there's so many lies being told in the media. Like the government will always lie and say, something else is happening, right? Therefore, that like the protesters cut the optic cords, right? Optical cables. So they'll make these excuses and lies. And I wanted to also stress, like, this affects obviously Bangladesh just trade, and using internet. Obviously you need it to people's livelihoods, online businesses, all that. So there's millions of dollars of loss for local businesses. But that's how the extent of the government and why they're doing what they're doing. Like they're willing to self-sabotage their economy just so that they keep the power and continue their reign, right? So I wanted to focus on the quote on my over here. Sorry, it's over here. You can see that internet shut down itself. That's a statement by literally someone within the Hasina government. The internet shut down itself. Like, can you imagine? Like, just to bring it back to Palestine, Israel, Like we know when it was really heightened on social media, like there were so many Israeli officials that may have tweeted stuff or said stuff online, and they were just blatant lying. Like, and it was very clear, and everyone would just make memes out of it and all that kind of stuff. So everyone knew the Israeli officials are lying. It's just dumb lies. Like, but I had a conversation with Yasser Morsi. It was really interesting. It's like basically Israel, it does like they can lie about anything. They can do what they want. They're not even trying to lie. Like how scary is that? Like they're not even trying to come up with a good lie. They're just lying and saying ridiculous things because they know it's not gonna like affect them. Like they have that kind of power. They know there's no accountability, so they can just say whatever they say. And this is similarly in Bangladesh as well with the Awami League. Like the guys saying internet shut down itself, bro. Like what the heck? Like who even says that? And if you make that kind of statement, you're so dumb, stupid, don't think. You can't even take the time to think of a better lie. Like you didn't even take a moment to be like, oh yeah, like so what happened was like if they really wanted to lie, well like the internet, there were students that were like around the optical cables and they were the ones that instigated because they didn't want to spread that the government were actually doing good when we are trying to do good, right? So you could even just lie a little better, right? But the guy is just saying internet shut down itself. Like he doesn't even care, bro. It doesn't even matter what he says. Because like, like he's gonna be in power, they're gonna continue their reign, like who cares, whatever. And that's the scary thing. And this is why the students are angry and really want to keep pushing back in this kind of injustices that are occurring. But that's the nature of like the government in Bangladesh. They say ridiculous things, and it doesn't matter because they know that they have the power and they can say those things and continue to say such dumb things. So when it comes to this slide, why do students demand a reform to the quota system? So you have there's been studies or analysis that I know it's contested. There has been economic growth in Bangladesh, and it's highlighted that Bangladesh's economy is a lot better than other countries' economies in the subcontinent. But when you talk about in sense of youth unemployment is still increasing. So people are like, you can imagine like not students being angry about this kind of things like it's not translating across to jobs, which it should, right? If you talk about actual economics. So that is one reason, and because the unemployment rate is increasing as well, and on top of that, inflation is increasing, hovering over 10% with unemployment rate creeping to 13%. Some people say even more. Like these are conservative numbers as well, right? So that's the situation. Like there's a lot of frustration, there's a lot of anger about why this is still happening, right? Like this should not be happening, and it's coupled with the bribery, the corruption that exists in all facets of Bangladesh society. That all the jobs are with the elitists, as I described earlier, like all these sort of aspects, and the situation for the lower class it's just getting worse and worse, and they're not seeing any light at the end of the tunnel, right? So there are annoyed, frustrated, and Chatra League as well get these elitist jobs. So like on merit, you're leaving out so much percentage of the population who can earn a better living, but those efforts aren't being made, and that's why, and it's not looking better. So that's why the youth are really standing up in regards to all these kind of situations, right? So it's a fight against with the peaceful protesters to highlight the injustice, the atrocities, to also highlight like the corruption, the bribery in all facets, and they're sick of it. And this was just basically this specific quota reform movement. It's just what opened the floodgates to all these kind of because of all these oppression that's occurring in Bangladesh. They're frustrated now, and now that's why they're peacefully protesting on the street. And now we see Abu Sayeed that was willing to die for this because like this is the kind of extent that the situation has gotten to, unfortunately. So when I go on to the next slide, what are the demands of the students? There's a lot uh, here, and as I said, the recent developments were that the students they're trying to paint that the leaders of the student quota movement are demanding the rest of Bangladesh to stop protesting, right? But there've been other people that have pretty much shut down those demands from those arrested Quota Reform movement people and saying that no, we're going to keep protesting, right? So what were the demands of the students? The Prime Minister must accept responsibility for the mass killings of the students and publicly apologize. That's number one. Number two, the Home Minister and the Road, Transport and Bridges Minister, the latter is also the Secretary General of the Awami League, must resign from the cabinet positions in the party. Number three, police officers present in the sites where the students were killed must be sacked. Number four, vice chancellors of Dhaka, Jahangir Nagar, and Rajshahi universities must resign. Number five, the police and goons who attacked the students and those who instigated the attacks must be arrested. Number six, families of the killed and injured must be compensated. Number seven, Chhatra League must be banned from student politics and a student union established. Number eight, all educational institutions and the halls of residences must be reopened. Number nine, guarantees must be provided that no academic or administrative harassment of protesters will take place. So all these implemented would really bring in much needed change, positive change and justice into Bangladesh society. And this is what the students want. And we should all support when it comes to this, because this is just basic human rights and basic justice. And we as Muslims and the Ummah should be promoting it and talking about it more, right? So this is essentially these demands that the students want. So we're nearing the end, and as I've sort of already explained, that it's not just about the quotas anymore, right? Like the quotas were the floodgates are open to have these discussions and pushing back on the corruption that exists in all facets, right? So it's not even just the corruption, the briberies that occur in normal Bangladesh everyday life to get ahead, but it's also the actions of the Hasina regime, right? Like the whole sort of like Jamaat Islami Party, they literally, Hasina regime literally assassinate, kill opposition leader parties, so that they don't stand in opposition to the party. Like they're willing to just do whatever they can to assassinate and kill people so that other political parties lose power. And that's the nature of the Hasina regime. They just want to continue that, right? So that's why students are very sick of this corruption, but they're also sick of like all this kind of bloodshed. This happened throughout Bangladesh history. So, and also on top, there was no credible democratic elections in the past 15 years, like, which is unbelievable. And many other countries have actually made public statements about this as well. So it's not just within Bangladesh, it's from international countries, other countries around the world too. And so Hasina regime also ordered judicial killings between 2000 and 2009 and 2002. There were 2,500 judicial killings and 2,000 party members detained. And so, as Faruqi, one of the leaders of the Quota Reform movement, our protest is not against quota system. It is instead for the reformation of the system. So it's really, really important to hammer this point home, that it's more than just about the Quota Reform movement. It's about justice in Bangladesh for the people that deserve it, right? And Sayeed Alam, he is a really famous photographer that was all about justice and equality, and really brave man, mashallah. So he said, protests are no longer about the quota system. The violence has led even common people to demand the Prime Minister's exit. So this is the situation currently, and that's what the people in Bangladesh are pushing for. And they just want an end, and they want to see light at the end of the tunnel, right? But they're not seeing anything. Like there's so many, like there was a famous situation that did the rounds where so there was Abra Fahad, like a university student from Buet, which is a really prestigious Bangladesh university, like Bangladesh University of Engineering Technology, but he literally online critiqued Indian hegemony on social media and was bludgeoned to death on the campus. So these things are common in Bangladesh, like it happens, and people can't speak up. Like anything that happens about someone just says a certain thing, it's not even just like taken away; they'll be bludgeoned to death. And that's the sort of extent to what the government's willing to do. And people are obviously want to stand now standing up to these kind of situations and wants justice. And also to mention, because the Bangladesh are using police, using Chhatra League, using the army. But another group that they're also using is RAB. They're called Rapid Action Battalion. They're literally like, I don't know if CIA is like the right word, but they're willing they're like very elite group of like elite organization that literally are extremely skilled, extremely trained. Like it's like almost what's it called, like Navy SEAL vibes, you know, like when you see in the US context, that kind of elite trained, and they will carry out like assassinations, killings, and all this sort of stuff in behalf of the government. And that is the extent of how the government will utilize all their resources in order to kill innocent people for their own gain. And it's happening right now on the streets of Bangladesh against these innocent student protesters. And it's very, very, very scary, subhanAllah. And as I said, like these brave students are willing to go to that extent, are willing to stand up for their rights, are willing to do what they can in order to finally get justice, finally work towards a better Bangladesh, a better future for the people, and really work hard and work towards that. And subhanAllah, unfortunately, like they're having to put their life on the line in order to just get basic human rights. And we need to really stand up as a ummah. We really need to work hard. And it's not for me to say what people of Bangladesh do on the ground and how they go about it. If they decide to protest peacefully, they'll protest peacefully. If they decide to stop the protest, they'll decide to protest. It's not up to me to, you know, add my opinion is my opinion. Like it's my 2 cents. All I'm focused about as being, you know, privileged, even Bangladeshi, living in outside of Bangladesh. Like my question is, what are we doing as the rest of our ummah in regards to this situation? Like, what are we going to do or say or speak up and take action when it comes to spreading awareness of this situation? Because unfortunately, like the ummah as a whole don't know about what's happening to their fellow brothers and sisters or fellow Bangladeshi brothers and sisters, right? Like they don't know anything, unfortunately, and we need to really speak out. We need to talk about in the masajid, and I really applaud, mashallah, like my friends at you know, Palestinian activism, that they the ones that organized yesterday's event. I told it on when I was on speaking my part and doing my talk. This is the first time in my life that I saw a Bangladeshi talk in the masjid, right? Like a first time, like a country of Bangladesh that goes through such struggle on in all facets of life, even outside of Bangladesh, like Bangladeshis are struggling, right? And this is the first time that people are talking about this topic in the masjid. Like it took this long for our community. So, and it's sad, right? And we need to speak up more. We need to create more awareness. We need to talk about as much as we can so that we get the justice that we can. The Hasina regime, like, step down and not and stop these atrocities to innocent people, innocent Bangladeshis that are already suffering so much in life. So, um, I hope, inshallah, I'll try to get, you know, someone else on, an expert in this particular field, and have these longer discussions about this sort of situation, because I want to, inshallah, try to push for more awareness around these topics. Like in Palestine activism, mashallah, everyone's been doing amazing work with the awareness, and it should never stop. We should do even more and more. But in comparison, like the Bangladesh situation, Bangladesh, like apart from Bangladeshis, like talking about it, no one else is really talking about it. So, inshallah, keep us, you know, as a ummah, we need to make dua. We need to keep praying, keep making dua, create more awareness, see Hasina as a Fir'aun, keep doing what we're doing, inshallah, because we really need to put our hands up. We really need to fight for justice for our fellow brothers and sisters in Bangladesh, inshallah. So I hope that this was beneficial. And I hope I made most of the points, and feel free to add to it or correct any mistakes that I've done. You can leave comments or reach out to me. I always want to get better, improve, and refine things as well. And we'll get the experts, inshallah, soon and on the show to talk more about this kind of situation. And in regards to Boys in the Cave, we're doing a book club as well. So if you're interested in joining up, like I'll put the links to inshallah. And these are the sort of topics, in the coming months we'll talk about, when it comes to, right now we're doing like psychology topics, but we want to include it and couple it with political discussions, right? It's really important as a community that we really upskill our knowledge when it comes to politics. What is secularism? What is liberalism? How does why is situations around the world happening to Muslims? How should we go about trying to achieve justice? So all these kind of conversations, and all other conversations in relation to our deen or knowing our seerah and everything in between. We're trying to get to the heart of these conversations within these book clubs. So we will, inshallah, put the links in the show notes as well. Appreciate everyone that's tuning in, and please share this around. It took a long time to really put the slides together, inshallah. So if anyone wanted to get a hold of it, feel free to reach out to me and I'll send the link. But it's all about spreading the awareness, inshallah. So I'll probably wrap up. My name's Tanzim, and yeah, salam alaikum.